Have you noticed something strange happening around Caitlin Clark lately? It's not just the sold-out arenas. And it's definitely not just the... Because when Michael Jordan... And why does it feel like the entire basketball world has suddenly decided that Caitlin Clark is more than just another young star? The answer goes much deeper than points, assists, or highlight reels. And it all started with a rookie who refused to follow the usual script. Most highly touted prospects enter a professional league with one goal: survive. They spend their first season learning the speed of the game, earning respect from veterans, and trying not to make too many mistakes. That's the normal path. But Caitlin Clark never had a normal path. Long before she stepped onto a WNBA court, she had already become one of the most recognizable names in basketball. Millions of people were tuning in just to watch her play. College arenas were packed, television ratings exploded, highlights flooded social media every night. By the time she entered the WNBA, the rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel They remembered the moments that divided basketball fans into completely different camps. When both players entered the WNBA, that rivalry followed them. Every matchup instantly became must-see television. Every interaction generated thousands of posts online. People weren't just watching basketball anymore. They were choosing sides. And that's exactly what makes sports powerful. The biggest rivalries have never been about statistics alone. They're about emotion. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird understood that. Michael Jordan understood that. The greatest rivalries create stories that casual fans can't ignore. And suddenly, Clark and Reese were creating that same kind of attention. But as the spotlight grew brighter, so did the criticism. Clark quickly discovered something every superstar eventually learns. Success attracts resistance. The more attention she received, the more physical the game seemed to become. Defenders played harder. Opponents became more aggressive. Every team wanted to be the one that slowed her down. Some fans argued she was and the louder those debates became, the more basketball legends started paying attention. One of those legends, if there's anyone who When he arrived in the NBA, he wasn't just another rookie. He was a cultural phenomenon. People copied his style. They copied his attitude. They copied his game. And despite all the criticism he faced, Iverson never backed down. That's why many people found his comments about Caitlin Clark so interesting. Because he wasn't just praising her scoring. He wasn't talking only about her deep three-pointers. He was talking about something bigger. He was talking about impact. The ability to change how people watch basketball. The ability to attract fans who normally wouldn't care. The ability to make the entire sport feel different. Iverson recognized something familiar, not because Clark plays like him, but because she creates the same kind of reaction. People can't stop talking about her. Whether they love her or criticize her, they're paying attention. And in sports, attention changes everything. But Iverson wasn't alone. Soon, other legendary voices joined the conversation. Charles Barkley noticed something that many critics overlooked. Despite being at the center of constant controversy, Clark rarely seemed interested in creating more of it. Think about that for a second. Every week there was a new debate. Every week there was a new headline. Every week social media found something new to argue about. Yet Clark consistently kept her focus on. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Because while fans were arguing about Caitlin Clark's popularity, Clark herself seemed focused on something completely different. Winning. That's what made her recent performances so significant. For weeks, critics had been waiting for an opportunity. Every off night became evidence. Every loss became a talking point. Every mistake was analyzed from every possible angle. Some people were already wondering if the hype had gone too far. Then Clark reminded everyone why she became a phenomenon in the first place. The scoring exploded. The confidence returned. The deep shots started falling again, and suddenly the conversation shifted. Instead of asking whether she belonged, people started asking how much better she could become. That's a very different discussion, because the scary part for opponents isn't what Clark is doing right now. It's how much room she still has to grow. Many rookies enter professional sports already close to their ceiling. They rely on physical advantages that disappear against elite competition. They dominate with athleticism until everybody catches up. Clark's situation feels different. A huge part of her game is built on vision, timing, decision-making, basketball IQ. Those are skills that usually improve with experience. And that's exactly why so many former players believe her best basketball is still ahead of her. Every game teaches her something new. Every defensive scheme becomes another lesson. Every physical matchup gives her more information. The player opponents are facing today may look completely different from the player they face 2 or 3 years from now, and that realization has started making some people nervous. Because if the attention surrounding Clark is already this massive, what happens if her game reaches another level? What happens if the scoring keeps climbing? What happens if the wins start piling up? What happens if championships enter the conversation? Those questions are beginning to hang over the entire league, and fans aren't the only ones noticing. Opposing teams are noticing too. One thing veteran players understand better than anyone is that attention creates pressure. When a superstar enters the building, everything changes. The crowd gets louder, the cameras multiply, the atmosphere feels different. Every opponent suddenly wants to be the player who delivers the statement performance. That's part of what Clark deals with every night. For some players, that pressure becomes overwhelming. For others, it becomes fuel. And lately, it has started looking like fuel. The confidence that made her famous at Iowa hasn't disappeared. If anything, it's becoming more visible. You can see it in the way she attacks defenses. You can see it in the pace she plays with. You can see it in the shots she's willing to take when the game is on the line. Those aren't the actions of someone shrinking under pressure. They're the actions of someone learning how to use it. And that's exactly what has caught the attention of so many basketball legends. Because great players recognize growth. They recognize adaptation. They recognize the moment when talent starts transforming into something more dangerous, something sustainable, something capable of lasting for years. That's why the comparisons continue. Not because Clark has already matched the accomplishments of the game's greatest players. She hasn't. Not yet. The comparisons exist because people see familiar signs. The ability to attract new fans. The ability to change conversations. The ability to create moments that spread far beyond the game itself. Very few athletes possess that combination, and when they do, sports history tends to remember them. Of course, not everyone agrees. That's part of what makes this story so fascinating. For every fan celebrating Clark's success, another fan argues the praise has become excessive. For every analyst calling her transformational, another insists it's far too early for those labels. The debates never seem to end, but in a strange way, that might actually prove the point. The biggest stars are rarely ignored. People argue about them because they matter. People debate them because they influence the sport. People react because they care. And right now, few athletes generate stronger reactions than Caitlin Clark. Love her, criticize her, support her, doubt her. One thing is impossible to deny. People are paying attention. That attention has helped create one of the most important moments in modern WNBA history. For years, league executives hoped women's basketball would receive this level of national attention. Now it's happening. Games are becoming events. Players are becoming household names. Storylines are reaching audiences that never followed the league before. The momentum feels real. And the most remarkable part? Many bell. But if you think the biggest challenge in Caitlin Clark's career has been dealing with opposing defenses, think again. Because the real battle may be happening away from the scoreboard. Every superstar eventually reaches a point where expectations become impossible. At first, fans simply want to see potential. Then they want results. Then they want greatness. And before long, greatness isn't enough anymore. People expect perfection. That's the stage Clark is rapidly approaching. A 20-point game suddenly isn't impressive. A double-double becomes normal. A highlight pass barely survives the news cycle before fans demand another one. The standard keeps rising, and that's exactly what happens when an athlete becomes the face of a movement. The conversation stops being about what you've accomplished. It becomes about what you're supposed to accomplish next. We've seen it happen before. It happened to Michael Jordan. It happened to LeBron James. It happened to Stephen Curry. The bigger the star becomes, the smaller the margin for error gets. One rough shooting night creates headlines. One loss sparks questions. One mistake becomes a week-long debate. Clark is beginning to experience that reality in real time. And strangely enough, that's one of the strongest signs that she's reached another level of stardom. Because role players don't get scrutinized this way, average players don't dominate sports talk shows. Ordinary rookies don't generate national conversations every time they step on the court. Stars do. And with every passing month, Clark's spotlight continues growing. What's fascinating is how quickly her influence has spread beyond basketball itself. At games, you see celebrities showing up. You see former athletes talking about her. You see people who have never watched a WNBA game suddenly discussing league standings and player matchups. That's not something statistics can measure. It's cultural influence. And cultural influence is often what separates great players from transformational ones. The league understands it. Sponsors understand it. Broadcasters understand it. That's why every major moment involving Clark seems to travel so quickly. A big shot becomes a viral clip. A rivalry moment becomes a national discussion. A post-game interview becomes content for sports shows across the country. The spotlight follows her everywhere, but that spotlight creates another challenge. Because once people start calling you the future, every opponent wants to prove them wrong. Nobody wants to be remembered as the team that got run over by the next superstar. Nobody wants to be the defender on the wrong side of a highlight that's replayed for years. That's why Clark often gets every team's best effort. Every night feels personal. Every matchup feels important. Every arena feels louder. And that's where things become especially interesting. Because some players crack under that pressure, others evolve because of it. The greatest competitors almost develop a strange relationship with expectations. Instead of running from them, they chase them. Instead of avoiding pressure, they embrace it. Instead of fearing the spotlight, they perform better because it's there. That's the pattern many observers believe they're starting to see with Clark. The bigger the moment, the more comfortable she appears. The louder the crowd, the more confident she becomes. The more people doubt her, the stronger the response seems to be. And if that trend continues, the rest of the league could have a serious problem, because talent is dangerous, confidence is dangerous. But talent combined with confidence and experience, that's where dynasties begin. Of course, none of this guarantees championships. Basketball doesn't work that way. The WNBA is filled with elite players. Veteran stars aren't simply going to step aside. Every championship contender has talent. Every playoff run comes with obstacles. Nothing is promised. Still, there is a growing sense around the sport that something unusual is happening, not just because of Clark, not just because of Reese, but because of what their presence represents. For years, women's basketball fought for mainstream attention. Now the attention is here. The rivalries are here. The storylines are here. The debates are here. Most importantly, the fans are here. And once fans become emotionally